Today, we are here with a number of people who represent the participants, the alliance, if you will, for I guess I should say it the right way, the Run for Recovery. Now, folks, don't be confused. The Run for Recovery is made up of 4 different organizations working together. We have the Run for Recovery, using the number 4, Crisis in Our Backyard, Alliance for Safe Kids, and of course, Search for Change. And we have with us today the executive director of Chief Executive Officer of Search for Change, Ashley Brody. We have Victoria Betts. She's the program manager of Run for Recovery. Susan Salamone. She's the founder. Okay, the founder and I screwed it up. You are the founder, and what were you again?
Executive director.
Got it. You are the ED. All right. I wrote the wrong names. ED. We'll do it one more time. That's a cut. Take 2.
And excuse me before you start. It's drug crisis.
Drug crisis.
In our backyard.
Got it.
And it's founder, program director.
Okay. I wouldn't mess it up.
But you know what? Whatever you got.
No. Once we get rolling, this is just.
It'll get better from here.
No, trust me. Now that
that's because it's your name, but my
no, because I always write out the opening, and I didn't realize this. So I like to get it rather precise. Okay, for editing, it is 1:16 by the clock, and we're going to get rolling. It is 1:16. Thursday, September 6th. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Marone for Westchester Talk Radio. And we're here today to talking about a very important event. And that event is the search. It's called the Run for Recovery. And there are a number of organizations that are participating in it. It is Saturday. Write this down. Saturday, September 28th at FDR Park in Yorktown. It starts at 9 p.m. We'll be back with the particulars again in a little while. But what I'd like to do is remind you, we have an alliance of organizations that are participating, and we have some of the people involved in that with us today. First off, we have Ashley Brody. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Search for Change. Victoria Betts. She is the program manager at Run for Recovery. That's the number 4. We have Susan Salamone. She's the founder and executive director of Drug Crisis in Our Backyard. We're going to go through with you the event, its history, the history of these organizations. But again, I want to remind you, we'd like you to show up. There are a number of different things, or donate. And we'll talk about that. We'll tell you how you can sponsor, how you can donate. We will even give you a website and a text message ID where you can do those things. And first, since I know him the best, full disclosure, we work on a board of another organization together. I'd like you to meet Ashley Brody. Ashley, good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Bob. Thank you. How are you today?
Pretty well. I know you and your colleagues today work together every year on this event. I'd like you to give us a little history of the event, if you would, please.
Sure. I'll just going to interject one point of clarification, if I may, before we proceed. I believe in your introduction, you mentioned that the event is being held on the 28th at 9 p.m. It's actually 9 a.m.
Did I say p.m.?
Yes.
It happens. A.m., p.m.
It happens. This event is in some ways going to run through the entire month of September. So we're still accept donations after 9 a.m. But I just wanted to let people know that if they come to participate, they should show up at or before 9 a.m.
I hope the 3 of you are very happy that I made that error. It's consistent.
That's quite all right.
The people who make those wonderful Indian rugs, they leave a defect in every one so that they know that they're not perfect. Well, tell us again about the history of it, if you would.
Sure. I actually am probably going to allow Susan and or Vicky to elaborate a bit more on the history because they actually founded this event as well. But I'll share a little bit about my organization's history.
Which is, of course, Search for Change.
Search for Change. Thank you very much. Yeah. So my agency was established nearly 50 years ago. We're a nonprofit service provider that operates in Westchester and Putnam counties. And we provide supportive housing, vocational rehabilitation, and other services for individuals with significant mental health challenges. many of whom are also living with substance use disorder and other impediments to recovery. We've been around again for 50 years, and during that time, we've grown and morphed. And as we know, the need for mental health services, behavioral health services, substance use services is as great now as ever. And I think over the course of time, we developed a natural relationship with Susan and her organization, and then with Vicki and hers. And a few years ago, I believe it was shortly before the pandemic, they invited us, Search for Change, to join this event. They had established it back in 2014, and I'm sure they'll tell you a little bit more about it shortly. But we jumped at the opportunity. Susan and I had already established a relationship because we shared some common challenges and partnerships in and around Putnam County. And we also recognize, as I said earlier, that my agency was serving an increasing number of individuals who are dealing with substance use issues. And as September is recognized as National Recovery Month, and we were looking to do an event that honored that, we really embraced the opportunity to join her and Vicki in this event. So we've been an active participant in it since then. I believe we joined it at around 2017 or 2018. Obviously, the pandemic complicated matters and we went virtual, but we resumed an in-person and virtual formats for participation, and the event has just blossomed since then. And as we will indicate a little bit further in our dialogue and some of the materials that we'll happily share with the audience, this event is really there to highlight the importance of recovery in National Recovery Awareness Month, to raise money for our respective organizations, all of which are out there doing the good work of supporting people in their recovery, and just driving home the message that millions of Americans are living with, struggling with, recovering from mental health and substance use issues. And we want to highlight not only the work that we do, but all the different partnerships that we enjoy throughout the communities and helping people to advance their recovery.
And of course, your organization is a nonprofit that people
Correct.
should be aware of, depending
Yes.
on funding, money from governments, et cetera, donations. And we will get to that. Also, you mentioned, and I wrote a note about this, that people can participate virtually. I'm very interested
Correct.
in a little while to talk about that.
Sure. Yep.
Let's go to Susan now. Susan is the founder and the executive director of Drug Crisis in Our Backyard. Tell us about your organization.
That's a mouthful, huh, Bob?
Yeah, it really is, but I got it right. When we were
It's a
setting
little
up
bit
the
of-
opening before, I finally got it right, and then I messed up the time. And folks, I remind you, we're talking about an excellent event. It is the Run for Recovery. It's coming up on Saturday, September 28th at FDR Park in Yorktown. It starts at 9 a.m. For those of you who are listening, we're going to give you a lot of information, and it is for a good cause. And we're talking with the organizations that have allied together to make this happen. Susan, speak to us about your organization.
Okay, Bob, I started my organization in June of 2012 after the death of my son Justin to a heroin overdose.
Oh,
Yeah, we had dealt with his addiction for several years. We lived with the fact that he was pretty sick, and we didn't even know it was a disease then. We didn't know where to find help. As family members, we didn't know where to get the help. So we did know where he could get help, but as family members, we didn't know where to get the help. So he passed away in May of 2029, and actually he passed away in in one of Search for Change's residences, and that is how I got to meet Ashley Brody. So it's amazing that it was really an inspiration to meet Ashley, because I believe that my son brought us together.
yes,
So
I need to interrupt you because, and this is for the people listening and watching. This is a heartbreaking story. I mean, we're talking with a woman who's trying to give back, and you lost your son. I am so sorry, but to see what you're doing is very commendable.
thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thank you.
God bless him.
Thank
Jeez.
you. Yes. And so we connected. I wrote an article for the Mayapack News. You're familiar with Brett?
Of course.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wrote an article about what happened to our family, and it was called Saving Justin. And he published it. And I got a call from Carol Christensen, who lives in Somers, and her husband the next day, really. And she told me she lost her son, Eric. she was burying Eric that day. And he was 28, my son was 29. They didn't know each other, but they didn't even come from the same town, but it was running rampant in our community. And we got together and we started Drug Crisis in Our Backyard immediately in June. And our mission was really to let everyone know that this was happening. Like when the cops came to our house, they said, we are finding heroin in every call we go to. And we didn't know it and no one knew it. And so that was really our mission at that time, to promote the awareness of heroin and other illegal drugs in our community. And that was really a big part of our mission. And also to help family members who were struggling with addiction and didn't know where to turn to help or what to do. And so those were really top priorities for us. And then it evolved as we got started. I was working at that time, and then the following year, I left my teaching job and started doing Drug Crisis in Our Backyard full time.
You know, you're good at this, because I was going to ask that question. When did you start doing this? Because as I look at you and your carriage, it must have been so difficult just to get over losing a child. No one should. And this is what the drug crisis is doing in many families in this country. Now, in your case, how did you summon the courage? Because people want to know. I've met in this job of mine people who've lost children. Some can never recover from it. How did you do that?
I think, you know what, I it's hard to say, really. I had so much anger and grief that
Sure.
I channeled that into action. And I asked the community for action too. And me and Victoria were friends at that time, and we had a whole group of friends. So they rallied around me and Carol. And Carol had a lot of friends too. And we started doing presentations in August of 2012. That's how soon afterwards.
God bless.
At the Mayapack Library.
Now let's talk about what you do, what your organization does day in and day out. How do you do what you do?
Okay, so for I would say the first 10 years, up until COVID, we did a lot of outreach, a lot of presentations, introducing ourselves to people like Search for Change and St. Christopher's and different organizations
Sure.
that could help those that were living with addiction. And after COVID hit, I kind of stepped back and started working mainly with families. So currently, that's what I do. I work with family members that are living with addiction. I do one-to-one coaching, and I run a support group on Tuesday nights that educates families on strategies to help their loved one change their behavior. And also it's a family support group where people can get to talk and know that they're not alone, and also using strategies to help themselves live with it. It's a very difficult disease to live with.
Do you get, and I have to ask you this, we want people to participate in the run. It's one of the reasons why we're here, but also the opportunity to share with people how you cope and what you've done. How much is doing this help you not only survive, but even feel a purpose?
Yeah, it's my purpose.
And it really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and that's how you do what you do. Now, we're going to give some numbers out later, but for your organization, just as it is, how can people get a hold of it and go get a hold of you?
Okay, so I have a phone number. I'll give you that.
Give it twice, please, because what
Okay.
happens, people reach for their pen and then they drop it. So give it twice.
Okay, so it's 914-582-8384. And I'll say it again, 914-582-8384.
Okay, and that is, of course, the drug crisis in our backyard. We're going to be talking with you a little more about this. This is amazing. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We will be
Thanks for having us
continuing.
on.
Well, we're going to go all talk, the four of us together, but let's go next now to Victoria, and she can tell me if she prefers Vicky, but Victoria Betts, she's the program manager at Run, the number 4, Run for Recovery. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate what you guys do. Tell us about your organization. And again, as we switch, I'm going to keep reminding you folks, because it's why we're here. The banner on top the Run for Recovery. It's taking place Saturday, September 28th at that beautiful FDR Park in Yorktown. It starts at 9 a.m. We'll give out more information. At the beginning, you may have heard someone, I don't know who he is, say 9 p.m. because he's not that bright. But I have with me bright people who do God's work. Tell us about your organization.
Well, so I started Run for Recovery back in 2007 after my father passed away from the effects of alcoholism. And I say the effects is because he stopped drinking for years. However, he eventually died from cirrhosis. And so I got people that were either recovering in AA or Al-Anon, anybody that was needed to be in recovery or wanted to expand their pathway to recovery, to join in running because I'm a runner.
Okay.
And I've been around a lot of races that were that had agencies that would raise funding for various various agencies for various reasons, breast cancer, so on and so forth. So I got together Run for Recovery, and what I wanted to do is raise funding for people that were in recovery that needed financial help. And it eventually expanded, but the main root of it was because I realized that it was very hard for someone just to get a little bit of money for something that they needed for recovery. Like, let's say someone needed to get clothing. If someone was homeless, they needed food, they needed housing, they needed a little bit of money for something. It was very hard for someone just to go to an organization and say, hey, I need this. There was a lot of hoops that you had to jump through.
Sure.
So when I first started the agency, I started for any kind of recovery. If you had cancer and you needed a copay, Run for Recovery would help with that. If you were whatever kind of recovery that looked like. But however, when I came to New York years later, it morphed into helping more people with substance use disorder, alcohol use disorder, and mental health behavioral.
Where did you originate doing this? What city? Where that's
Los
began?
Angeles, North
In
Hollywood.
LA.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. And so when I got to New York, it morphed more into helping that population because it was just easier. Someone said you need to really focus on one thing. So when I met Susan, my brother had passed away, I think shortly before that, from substance use disorder, mental health, behavioral challenges, and a tragic motorcycle accident.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And
How, if I may, how soon after your dad's passing did you start the organization? And then, of course, you lose your brother as well.
a year.
About a
My
year.
father passed away, yes, a year, and then my brother passed away in 2010. And
Wow.
Susan and I met shortly thereafter, and I always wanted to do a charity run. I just don't like doing things by myself. So when I met Susan and we became friends, and I heard about her son, and my heart goes out to her because she's just a champion. I really look up to her for really forging through her grief, because I see her and I don't even know how it would be, how do I describe how it would be for her to lose a child. But
I'm trying to wrap my head around that as
Yeah.
well.
I
Excuse me.
really look up to her with what she does for the community, as well as Ashley, because housing and getting people jobs is very, very, very hard out here in the community. So I started morphing in more towards substance use disorder and mental health. And when I met Susan, I was like, we discussed it and we're like, hey, let's just do a race so that we can get people together all in one space, and kind of celebrate people's lives, but also the people that we lost, because she lost her son, I lost my dad, I lost my brother to alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder. And then in 2016, I lost my nephew to a heroin overdose. And he was 28. And then a couple of years later, I lost his brother, who was 29, to another heroin overdose. Yeah, and I have to and watching my sister live through that, or try to navigate through that now, is still painful to this day. So what I do is I just try to focus on whatever anybody needs, on their pathway to recovery, whether that's housing, food, clothing, getting their driver's license back, paying their tickets so that they can get a car to get to employment, whatever that looks like for that person in that moment, meet the person where they're at to progress in their recovery. That's what Run for Recovery does.
That's wonderful. Now, do you make referrals? Do you find the right organization for them? Do you appoint case managers? Do you have a staff? How does that work?
Well, people are referred to me. I also get the word out there that if anybody knows of anybody that is transitioning from rehab to sober living, if they need a down payment, and 1 month's pay, for us to pay for 1 month so that someone can get on their feet. Run for Recovery will help with that, depending on, our budget, depending on the resources, if we have it. And they just have to apply for a grant, through our organization, and hopefully it will only take 2 weeks. Sometimes they even let me put out of pocket and then reimburse me for things that are needed for that one particular person, that if their grant goes through. But 9 out of 10 times the grant does go through, because usually people that I come into contact with are either homeless or transitioning into a sober living, and usually they don't have financing. So
God.
if we can get them on their feet and which builds self-esteem, then they want to get a job and they want to, go on their pathway to recovery. Like if they get into an Oxford house, which is a sober living, we have paid for the deposit and 1 month's rent for someone, and they were able to get a job. I'm just giving you a short.
No, I understand. I'm going to ask for the phone number in a minute, but I want to remind folks who you are. She's Victoria Betts. She's the program manager at Run for Recovery. And I'm, the three of you, I've known Ashley for a long time, but I don't know where they make you, but we need to build that factory up. Can you give us your phone number and how people can get a hold of you? And again, please give it twice. And we'll all talk together in a little while. Give the phone number twice, please.
Sure. It's 818-618-0252. That's 818-618-0252. Yes, it's California. If I call you back, I'm not selling you anything. I just haven't, gone back to the 914, because maybe I might go back one day. So I keep the 818. So, but we are actually national. So if you have someone in another state that needs help, we're here. So we help all across the board, whatever you need. If we can. We're here.
And she's in California, but don't gloat too much, because we've been having wonderful weather for 2 or 3 days.
No, I'm here. My daughter's in California. I'm here.
Oh, you're all right. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be sure. Wanted to get it
I'm
right.
here.
And folks, you're listening to and watching, depending on your source, the Radio Westchester program. But this is a very special program. I'm Bob Marone. I run the place. I'm the president of Radio Westchester and its anchor. And today we're talking about the upcoming Run for Recovery. We're talking with the Alliance, or some of the members of the Alliance that make it up. They're helping people with mental illness, with drug disabilities, with mental disabilities, with addiction, and so forth, get their lives back. It's coming up on Saturday, September 28th, here in Westchester at FDR Park. That's the beautiful park just north of Yorktown. It starts at 9 a.m. I've gotten in trouble for saying p.m. one time. And if you know Ashley, who I'd like to talk with again, he's going to remind me of it many, many times. Ashley, what got you into this business? And tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I've been with my agency for 30 years now. Actually celebrated my 30th anniversary in July, believe it or not. I tell people I started right out of elementary school and was a prodigy. If I wish that were actually the case.
Yeah.
I think it's very clear from what you just heard from Susan and Vicky that they were profoundly affected in personal ways by this crisis. And there's no other way to characterize it but a crisis in mental health, a crisis in addiction. I was personally spared the worst of it. I certainly didn't experience the profound losses that they did, but I have many people in my family and my circle of friends and associates who have had their struggles. I can't imagine there's anyone who, if they were being honest, would say differently now, especially in America, right? You don't have to look very far to find someone who's struggled with substance dependence or mental health challenges, particularly nowadays. And I think that's one of the messages we try to drive home with this event. So I think for me personally, as I was coming along in my career, I recognized that this was the type of work that I wanted to do in some capacity. When I finished my undergraduate degree in psychology, I had a few internships for health and social welfare organizations, and I found myself at Search for Change through some happenstance. Happened to speak to the director at the time who offered me a position, and the rest is history, so to speak. But in the time that I've been with the agency, my passion for the work has definitely deepened, and a big part of that is through meeting people like Susan and Vicky and many other people with whom I work here in the organization, and just seeing how profoundly people's lives can be changed by the work. There's never enough, and I fear there will never be enough services to meet the need, because the need continues to grow exponentially. But day in and day out, I see the great work that's done by people in our organizations. As I said at the outset, we provide supportive housing, job readiness services, care management, and we work with some of the most vulnerable people in the community, people who have longstanding histories of serious mental illness, many of whom have been homeless. Some have been incarcerated, not because they're harming other people, not because they're violent. We know it's still unfortunately a misconception that people with mental health issues are violent. Quite the contrary. They're more likely to be victims of violence. But sometimes people with mental health or substance use issues will end up in the criminal justice system because they'll commit petty crimes as a consequence of their addiction or illness, and then just get lost in the system. I've seen people through the efforts of my agency, the efforts of Susan, the efforts of Vicky, and countless others, come out of hospitals, come out of incarceration, come out of homelessness, get back on their feet, gain a foothold in sobriety, gain housing, gain recovery in ways that they never thought possible, in ways that we never thought possible. So one of the messages kind of embedded in National Recovery Month is that recovery is possible, and that's what we really want to drive home to everyone.
I've got a question for the three of us, and the four of us are three of us, three of you, the four of us, and this is for all of you. We read even today, when you have new drugs, we moved from heroin not necessarily to crack cocaine, if you will. Now we read fentanyl, and now we even read and see on TV all the time the misuse of medications. What happened with the fellow from France? The crisis doesn't abate. What is the insight into its continuation and morphing even into more serious drugs, more lethal drugs? You want to take a shot at that, Susan?
Sure. I'll from my experience, I'll tell you what my feeling is about it. We worked with Dr. Andrew Kolodny early on. He was the chief medical examiner for Phoenix House, which was located in Shrub Oak. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
And Dr. Kolodny said unequivocally that this is a childhood disease. This is something that shows up in adolescence and adulthood, but it's a childhood disease. So I have 4 kids, 4 boys. They all grew up in the same house. Okay, me and my husband are married. We stayed married through this all, which is good, a good thing. And only my oldest son got addicted. And he started with marijuana in high school. He went to college. He started to use stronger drugs, probably because of some anxiety around being out of the house, and
sure.
And then he got even into stronger drugs because the pills were on the street then from the pharmaceutical companies, Purdue Pharma, and all those people that have been sued now. But this goes back to the early 2000s, right? And he got addicted first to pills and then to heroin. So, but the point I want to make is that all 4 of my children experimented with marijuana, but only Justin got addicted. And so whenever we talk to kids, we say, and parents, you don't know who has a target on their back. And so once they start and they really like it and they make it really makes them feel better about themselves, then they're going to try stronger and stronger drugs. And
you're saying something so relevant, and I want this to be all about you guys and what we're doing and what you're doing for this run. But one of the reasons I even got involved in any of this is anxiety, bad anxiety, self-hate. I have my own issues, is so powerful. People don't realize that some people, when they're young, it evolves. By the time they're teenagers, it blossoms. Early adults, it blooms even. And anything that would stop the pain, either people are going to self-medicate. Is that any, can I give any insight that way, do you think?
Yeah, I would agree that, you know,
Yeah.
it's self-medication. It's,
Yeah, I bet. What about, let's go back to Victoria. What about you? What's your take on why the crisis continues and what can we do?
That's a biggie. What can we do? I just want to double back and say, for me, when I was working in rehab, I would see a lot of people come back, and I would always say they were a familiar face, because if they came back, they were in rehab, they came back once, twice, three times. I always think to myself, you know, what isn't working, you know, or why isn't it working? And I came to the conclusion for myself was that it's got to be deep seated. It's got to go a little further than that. And like
Oh,
what Susan
absolutely.
said about childhood. So I myself, because I used to do run groups and stuff like that, realized it was the thing underneath the thing underneath the thing, which is like the trauma. Now,
Hmm.
I wasn't qualified to bring that trauma out in people, although we like I said, I did run groups. However, we would just touch the surface. So I would suggest to people that they might want to venture to maybe a therapist and talk to them about their childhood or where that trauma came from, because they kept coming back to the same place for the same reason and could never get through that, over that hurdle, or flip that switch up to want to go towards recovery, because they keep experiencing the same thing over and over again. And so for me, I always associate it with, you know, shame, guilt,
Oh, you got it.
all of that. And fast forward to now is not wanting to be here right now in your body,
Absolutely.
anything to
Absolutely.
not be here. So what do you do with that? And the person will do with it with what they may. It all depends, whether it's a drug, it's a drink, it's shopping, it's, you name it, it's across the board. There's, you know, many rooms, you know, you say AA, there's a lot of AA, there's
Oh,
a lot of A's out there,
absolutely.
200 A rooms out there for different things.
That's a lot. That's very insightful. You know, things, everything from OCD to shopping habits, as you mentioned, avoidance behavior, you name it. And we're really touching something. And I'd like to go back now to the executive director of, well, he calls himself chief executive officer, whichever he is. He's so good at it. Ashley Brody, how do you see the future and what we can do to at least lessen the numbers of people addicted?
Oh, excellent question, Bob. I mean, I think certainly Susan and Vicky touched on a couple of key components. I think we're in the midst of a perfect storm, if you will, right now. Again, we see just like the different manifestations of human distress on the rise: anxiety, depression, economic fears, fears about the state of our political environment. I think there's so many different things that are conspiring to
Mhm.
destabilize us right now, to generate anxiety. Some of that was exacerbated by the pandemic, which I think has been destabilizing and traumatizing to all of us. And we have all of these substances that continue to proliferate. And we're not just talking about the kind of old-fashioned substances, if you will, but to Susan's point, the opioid abuse epidemic has been fueled largely by the misdeeds of pharmaceutical industries. And it's very
Mhm.
at that. So we have a lot of things that work against us. I think we have things that are working for us too. Again, more recognition of this as a national, global trend. Stigma still prevails. It's not quite as bad as it was, because I think more people do recognize that you don't have to look beyond your neighborhood to find people who are struggling with this. I also think we need to recognize the other drivers of this. For as long as human beings have been walking upright, they found ways to relieve their pain, their anxiety, their
Mhm.
distress in some form of
Mhm.
substances. Right? For ages, it was alcohol, you know, other so-called natural substances. There's always been, and I fear to some extent will always be, a new substance on the
To
block.
some extent.
The key is finding out how we can cure, if you will, what drives people to seek it. I think treatment is critical, and there's not enough of it, as we know, but also addressing other needs that people have. And I think our field has come around towards recognizing the need to address what we're calling now social determinants of health. for too long, we were providing people with some treatment, but then sending them back to environments in which they were around people who might be using, or environments in which they weren't getting adequate food or didn't have adequate income supports or opportunities for education or career advancement. You can provide the best treatment, the best support in the world to someone, but if they don't have the constituents of a healthy, fruitful, and productive life, what inspiration and motivation are they going to have to sustain that? So I think we're coming to recognize as a society that it's not enough just to come up with good treatment, as important as that is, and as lacking as it is. We have to address other components too. So in answer to your question about what can we do to fix this, it may be unrealistic to fix it as an entirety, but I think if we can make treatment more widely available, reduce stigma, so people recognize that this is part of the human condition and you needn't be ashamed of it, and also make sure that people have access to all the different things that will not just promote the recovery, but to sustain their health and allow them to have healthy and productive lives, the desire to seek that relief from the pain won't be as acute. So I think we have to do all the above and more. And those are all heavy lifts right now. For obvious
They
reasons.
are.
It depends on political will, and to find political will right now is challenging. So that's why each of us does our best part to advance that. But I think those are some things that we have to consider.
I just want to do a little emotional and intellectual math here, something that I've heard from the three of you. And the public, I'm sure, realizes that, but we need to share it with them. Mental illness, issues with mood, issues with anxiety and depression, and leading to the more serious mood disorders, right on up to schizophrenia, if you will, the disorders that cross a very horrible line. These things are all interconnected. They're interconnected greatly. And even to the extent, I think, as Susan said, you've got someone dealing with anxiety that's intractable. Maybe they should have seen a shrink, but don't have any money. And so they turn to drink or they turn to a pill. These are very important things to see. And they affect everything else that all of you do. Housing, hospitalization, places to get food, get mental health services, addiction services. Folks, one of the reasons that things like Run for Recovery take place is the government does its share, and it makes money available that if you run a really good organization, they will help you, but it's not enough. And so the people in this field, the people we're talking with today, they run events like the one we're talking about. I'm going to remind you again, this is Westchester Talk Radio. We're talking with Alliance members of the Run for Recovery coming here to Westchester Saturday, September 28th at FDR Park in Yorktown. It starts at 9 a.m. That's the morning that I know that the gentleman you see on your screen right now is going to remind me of perpetually for many years to come. Oh, that was kind of redundant. Now let's get into the event. And yes, Susan, he will. I may come to you for help. Trust me, he
Bob
will
knows
do.
me.
It's just never going to end. Okay, let's talk about the things going on. I'm going to throw some things out there. And folks, just participation. You want to come and run. You want to be seen. You want to have fun. It is a fun day at the park. Again, the 28th of September, FDR Park. Now, I looked at some of the things that even sponsors get. I'd like you guys to talk about it. I know if people sponsor the organization that I work with separate from this, they've participated. You get 2 complimentary race entries, but I'd even know what a race entry is. Do I walk, run? Can I bring my inline skates? Also, Save a Life Wellness Fair is involved in this, and be a part of the virtual Save a Life Wellness Fair. Who knew? Who knew? Who wants to take up the Save a Life Wellness Fair? What's that all about? Feature your business.
You know what? I'll talk a little bit about Alliance for Safe Kids. Okay.
Go, please.
Yeah, that's the other organization. She wasn't able to be on, so I'll do the best I can.
Oh, well, thank you.
At the end of 2023, Drug Crisis in Our Backyard merged with Alliance for Safe Kids. And so for a number of reasons, they took over all the back office work for me, for Drug Crisis in Our Backyard, and they became part of the fundraising opportunities that Drug Crisis in Our Backyard had set up over the last 12 years. So Alliance for Safe Kids has been around for 20 years in Yorktown as a coalition to help adolescents with any problems they might be having, or really just to stay on the right track, okay? They offered a lot of opportunities for young for high school students to volunteer in different community service areas. And they were funded by a DFC grant, which is a drug-free community grant. Okay, so
Okay,
the last many years they've been funded by that, and that ended, I don't even remember what year, but probably about 5 years ago that ended. But they have been in place for 20 years, and they've been instrumental in connecting community members with vital resources for youth mental health, substance use prevention, intervention, and treatment. Now, it's funny because when I started Drug Crisis in Our Backyard, I knew Trish Kushner, who was the president and executive director of Alliance for Safe Kids. And when we had our first event in Mayapack, she was there. She spoke, and she had a table with a bunch of our kids, you know, the volunteers
mhm.
that Alliance for Safe Kids supported. So she really helped me get Drug Crisis off the ground. She was like my mentor. So when I was thinking about merging with someone because of not being able to manage the organization by myself, they were the first ones to come around.
And that is the Alliance for Safe Kids.
Alliance for Safe Kids.
You have a
right.
number for them?
You know, I don't,
Well, they can get it through you, so give your
they
number.
can get it through me because I don't want to give out Liz's number. I don't.
I understand.
All right, so now the Save a Life Wellness Fair, they used to have that in person before COVID. Okay, they used to have it at Lakeland or Yorktown High School, and it was such a big day, and they had a lot of presenters, and they had a keynote speaker, and it was so well attended. They had a lot of sponsors that would come. They'd have a whole food service. All the Yorktown and Westchester restaurants would come with samples of food. It was big. Then COVID hit. So that went away. So they're bringing it back now. They're bringing it back to our Run for Recovery. This is the first year that we're being complemented by Save a Life Wellness Fair, which will feature their sponsors, partner organization, and others that will offer information and resources throughout this event. And then they have a virtual version of this that will be 24/7, that people could go online, they could get the app, go online and get services.
I'm going to give that information out right now. So folks, I want you to get your pens, your crayons, dip your finger in ink, or type it if you're so inclined. HTTPS bit.ly save a SAVE life wellness, save a life wellness. And if you go on there, that's the virtual Save a Life Wellness Fair. Again, HTTPS, you know all that stuff with the colon and the 2 backslashes, bit.ly/save a life wellness. Susan, thank you. I have to ask you, we'll be thrown out of radio. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Bronx.
Thought so. City girl like me. I grew up in Brooklyn. All right, now I feel better already. All right, tell me about the race itself, and who can tell me how to participate? I know how to sign up. I have that information here, and I'll give it in a moment. But how? How do I sign up, and what can I do when I get there?
So I'll kick it off and happily hand it over to anyone else who wants to add to it.
Please
again.
do.
And Vicki know a bit more, having done it longer than I have. So I know you'll go into details about how you can register shortly, but just about the event itself. People can walk, people can run. It's a 3-mile, it's 5K course that runs the perimeter of FDR Park. And FDR Park is a beautiful park in and around Yorktown. And people can walk it, people can run it. It is a timed event. Some people race it. We don't regard it as a formal race per se. It's not a very competitive event, although people are free to compete.
Understood.
Strong runners there who put in a strong performance. So generally we have a handful of runners. We have walkers. People come with their kids. People come with their baby strollers. People come with their dogs. It's really meant to be a gathering and, an event to, again, highlight the spirit of support and partnership in honor of recovery. We also have other partners, individuals who come and advertise or provide information about the services they provide. We would call them vendors. They're not selling anything per se, but they're selling awareness, they're selling their services, they're advertising the good work that they do. And these are agencies that provide services similar to ours, agencies that provide housing, vocational rehabilitation, care management, substance use support services, and other services that could be of interest to agencies like ours or people we serve. So it's really meant to be a recovery themed and oriented event. And we have some light refreshments. And it's really just meant to be a day to celebrate the power and spirit of recovery.
Now, you have vendors. If people want to be a vendor, and I have some information there for vendors,
Mhm.
but tell us about what a vendor can do and how they can sponsor and so forth.
Sure. Susan, do you or Vicky want to elaborate on that a bit?
Earth,
You know what? I'd like Vicky to talk a little bit more about the run, because
Okay.
if it wasn't for Vicky, this would have never happened, because when Vicky
Fair
first
enough.
came to me in 2013 and said, let's do a run, I was like, what? I don't know anything about running.
so,
So if Vicky
hello,
would-
Vicky.
Go ahead.
I'll cue you in. Hi, Vic.
I'm here. I really like the running aspect of it. Actually, I like the camaraderie when it comes to running.
That's
People coming together and being together for one cause, or a collaborative of causes. However, we all really have the same mission, is to make people's lives better. Right.
Mhm.
So I really like that part of it. And I just lost my train of thought. I don't even know why.
No, but I can be
I had
curious.
blackout.
No, because I've covered some of these in my radio career and some TV. You have the people that race.
Mhm.
And at the end, yes, you won. They put on even their racing clothes.
Right.
And then you have the people that are just walking, they're on
Yes.
bikes, they're in
Right.
wheelchairs, they're in whatever
Right.
conveyance they like. And it's really something for everybody. And
It
it's the
is.
camaraderie that matters, isn't it? So I
Right.
hope I got you started there.
You
Continue.
did. Thank you so much, because I want to elaborate on that a smidge.
Yeah.
Because we do have people that are very competitive, unlike myself. That's a little inside joke. That do come out,
Yeah, I can tell.
that do come out every year though to win an award, which is great. And
Mhm.
another thing is, we have awards for each division, each age group, like 20 to 29, 30 to 39, so on and so forth. So you can place in your age group, which is nice, because a lot of places, if you go down county or into the city, it's very, very hard to place in your age.
Mhm.
Because I'm in a lot of races across the state. And I know if I go down county, I'm not winning anything. If I go a little further north, I might be able to touch a little medal or something. But the nice thing is, people that come to the race, whether they're running or walking, I always say you can crawl if you have to, can come and maybe get a little bling, maybe get a medal, which people love that.
Of course, you love that. I'm reading right through you. Will you
Come
be
on.
running? Will you be a ringer in this race?
No, I don't even care if there's only one person in my age category and it's just me. Okay.
God
I
bless you.
finished. I got a medal. I'm good.
Yeah.
And
I still play hockey. I get it. You got to win all the time.
yeah,
So you really are very much the founder of all this kind of stuff, running around to race. But it does work. And you mentioned something. Say a little more about how camaraderie is at sports and what it does. Because people who don't do it, when they do it for the first time, that's why pickleball is taken off. The
Mhm.
social aspect.
yeah. Well, I think some people might not know that, because some people may donate online or maybe do virtual because they can't be here, which is amazing. And it's awesome, because we need donations, because if we don't have donations, we can't provide for people, right? So we need that. And this really is the only way I fundraise for the year, is this race. But it just brings us all together, and it's like anything else. When you're in a group, you just have a warm heart. We know that we're here. We're also here to remember the people that we've lost along the way.
Mhm.
So that's really how it started, but it morphed into also a celebration of people's recovery.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that. That's why it's the Run for Recovery.
Right. So when we start off the race, and whomever we have, like, I mean, I always do the horn, but whoever speaks prior to we blowing the horn, the one, ready, set, go. We acknowledge the people that are running, that are in recovery, and we say, we're here because people are recovering from whatever that is, and along we're also celebrating the people that we've lost. So we cover the gamut. And that's what I think what brings us together, because if you're touched with substance use disorder, alcohol use disorder, mental illness, mental health challenges, you've been touched by someone that has encountered something, and you may have lost someone to suicide, and that's mental health behavioral stress or challenge. That's someone
Yeah,
that lost a life.
absolutely.
So we're covering, we're covering everything within our community together. And it shows us that we're fighting together against all of these odds, and we're still coming together for one mission, and it's to help people save their lives and help them move forward in life and have a better life.
And I can't credit you all enough for this. A couple of comments before I give out some critical information to get final remarks. Full disclosure, and in spirit of what we're talking about, and getting rid of the stigma. I was lucky. I had a good job when I developed very serious depression. And I'm only here today. It was this close. And I had a wonderful doctor and a very tough few years. And I was lucky. I had a good doctor and I had a support system. Most people don't have the good doctor and the support system. And I know you must feel this way, Susan, yourself, and what you do, of course, Ashley. Someone will die by suicide when they have depression, and I feel they died from an illness I had. And I wish they could have had help. I wish I knew. I would have tried to help in some way. And I've been talking about it on the radio for years because we've got to get rid of the stigma. But my point being that what you all do is really sacred work. I'm in awe of you. And I'm humbled by talking with you. I just had to tell you that, Vicky, Susan, Ashley. I'd like to yell at sometimes, but you're very special people.
Deservedly so.
And with that, I just want to give out some information and then get last comments from you. And again, this is not about me. I just wanted to be in partnership with. We shouldn't be embarrassed about talking about this, folks. You can be helped. So, sponsors out there, or if you want to donate, I'm going to give you some information. www.bit.ly/run for recovery. One more time, www.bit.ly/run for recovery, or text run the number 4 recovery to 71777. That's a text. Run for the number 4 recovery to 71777. And if you're like me and still love to use the phone, get your pen out for that. You can donate or sponsor this way. Phone 914-428-5600. One more time, 914-428-5600. And what I'd like to remind you, what's that all about? I just tuned in. Well, go to the top. We finished in just about under an hour. We're finishing now. Search, excuse me. I started out with he'll get me for this. It is the Run for Recovery event, Saturday, September 28th at FDR Park in Yorktown, New York. It starts at 9 a.m. You can run, walk, jog, just show up, have a good time. You can be involved in some stuff virtually. It's all kinds of things involved in this. Call it up, go online, check it out. And before we go, Ashley, Victoria, Susan, I'd like from each of you a final comment. Ashley.
Thank you, Bob. First of all, thank you for your time, and thank you for what you shared about your personally. And I think that really underscores a message that we're trying to drive home to everyone, is that everybody is touched directly or indirectly by mental health challenges, substance dependence, all the different challenges that we face in life. And it's so important and so critical that people know that they are not alone in coping with them. And that's also something about this particular event that really resonates with me. It highlights the importance of partnership. We've been so fortunate to have such valued partners in Susan and Vicky and now Liz and the team at Alliance for Safe Kids. And I think oftentimes in our work in the non-for-profit social service field, agencies operate somewhat independently in silos. They don't always reach across boundaries and embrace partners the way they should. And we have to recognize that if we're really going to work our way out of what is a national, if not global crisis, we can't do it alone. We can't do it as individual people, as individual communities, or as individual organizations. We really have to come together and share in our respective strengths and really bring the full force and power of community to bear on this. And that's one of the aspects of this event that I appreciate the most. And I'm very happy that we were invited to participate, and just look forward to what I know is going to be another successful event this year on the 28th.
Well, thank you very much.
At
Susan,
9
you're up
a.m.
next.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. That was well said. First of all, Bob, thank you so much for giving us voice here, okay? I think last year there were like 111,000 overdose deaths in this country. People should be talking about this every single day, and that's what would reduce the stigma. I want to say that I do this in memory of my son, Justin, and I certainly appreciate you telling us your story, because it just helps people know that almost everybody you touch will have a story, either their own or someone very close to them, and they don't have to be afraid to come out about it.
No, not at
So,
all.
thank you again for giving us a voice.
Thank you. And please, the woman that really is the chief runner, the runner in chief of this event in so many ways, Victoria, please give us your final words.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us this platform to speak about what we do out in the community. And I want to say thank you to Ashley and Susan and Liz as well, for giving me this opportunity. I don't like to do anything alone. I like to have people with me so that we can just do it together. I'd rather, it takes a village.
It really does.
So I just want to say this is in honor of my brother, my father, and my 2 nephews. And I'll just keep continuing to do what I can do. And I just want to let everybody know that if you don't think you can run, I have a shortcut that I'll let you know when you get to the race.
Oh, I will. I'm going to be asking you for the forecast, sure, because otherwise it'll save me the Uber money I was going to spend.
You just have to take a left instead of a right, but we'll get to that when you get there.
Well, I'll figure that one out. Trust me, if I have to get a drone to take a short trip. But listen, this has been a pleasure and a revelation for me. I'm proud to know you. I already knew Ashley. In fact, full disclosure, he and I share a board of yet another nonprofit that does similar work, Choice of New York. We will be sponsors. We believe in what you do. And I will be there and have some people from Choice with me. So thank you very much.